In this video, I want to show you how we can actually use some of the data layers that we bring into ArcGIS. And so here I've provided you with a map project document that's going to have some data, and you can certainly go ahead and explore the data that's out there by going into folders. Coming in here, you're going to see that there's a number of data layers. Data layers are just links to a streaming data set, and so if you actually want to pull any of these in, it's relatively easy like I could grab subway stations and just drop subway stations in, and you're going to see that goes ahead and links in. There's also some data layers that I've provided for you that we're going to use here in a minute. One of those is the New York City borough boundaries. I've actually already preloaded that within the data set, so it should already be available, but if not, it's hanging out over here. We'll use it here in just a minute. But again, it's easy to go out and find all of these different layers, but what do we do with them once we've got them? Well, in your instructions, it gave you a couple different ways to go in and explore different data sets. And so, I can come in and look at the attribute table for all of the subway stations, and it can, it'll go ahead and break it down for me in terms of, which lines are, which rail lines pass through which stations, that kind of information. I can drop down here to New York City Parks and Open Space, and what's actually going to jump up here in the attribute table is it'll pop up the name of every single park or open space in the metro region. And so here within New York City, you'll actually see it go ahead and populate here in green, all of the parks and open spaces. And those certainly range from large parks like Central Park here, all the way down to micro features like the little green strips in the roadway on Park Avenue. And so I'll click into that, right? And so all of this land is managed by the Park District, and so they've included it in this layer, right? We may not be interested in that level of detail as we start looking into these data sets. And so certainly we can go ahead and get a little bit more specific to what we're trying to do. And it's the numerical values that are behind this, or the categorical information that's behind these data layers, that allows us to sort and start to use this data. So one of the things that I did want to show you is that I wanted to show you how to go ahead and create a simple selection. And so what I mean by that is that there are a number of tools in ArcGIS or ArcGIS Pro that are available here. It's called up here, it's select by attributes, and select by location. Right now, what I want to show you is the select by attributes tool set. And what this is going to allow us to do is that if I go ahead and open back up the attribute table for the New York City Parks and Open Space layer, what it's going to actually do is it's going to tell me that there's a land use code that's associated with all of the flagship parks in New York City. And what I mean by flagship parks, it's things that you would expect. It's the well-known parks, Bryant Park, Central Park, across the city. But if we wanted to actually create a layer that, instead of having all of this information and all the little park, median strips that the park department manages, right? How would we create a new layer? Well, select by attributes allows us to do this. And so New York City Open Space and Parks, right, is what we're going to actually be creating. And I am creating a new selection. There are times where adding or removing from a current selection is a useful aspect of this tool set. But right now, we're just going ahead and creating a single one-step selection process. And then I come down here and click on New Expression. All it wants for new expression is that I've got to go ahead, and again, this comes from the attribute table. This is the heading on top of each one of those columns of data, and I want land use, and I want to say is equal to, in this case, I want the flagship parks. That's all I need to do, and then I'm going to hit apply. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Once I've done that, what you'll actually see is outlined in blue are all of the flagship parks in the New York City Parks Department, right? And so this has created a selection. If I want to turn that into a layer, I can just right click on this, and I can go down to selection, and here make a layer from selected features is what I want to go ahead and do. I'm going to go ahead and it went ahead and created that. I'm actually going to go ahead and clear all those selections, and you're going to see that as I flip on and off, that this is just those flagship parks within the New York City. So we've gotten rid of all that other information. Real quick, just to show you, if you want to actually have them both on at the same time and be able to highlight the difference between these, right now this green is really getting lost into the background map. It's actually almost the same color as the background map that's holding all of the information for us, right? And so one of the things that you can always do is that you can go ahead and click on the symbol itself, and you can come over to symbology, which also hides out down here if you need to click over to it. And you can just go ahead and click, and we could go ahead and change for flagship parks. Let's make them purple and hit apply. And down here, since they're still kind of hiding in the background there, let's make the a really bright green color for all of the parks. And so what you can see here is that the flagship parks now, we've separated out the data and given us an opportunity to focus in on just the features that we are interested in exploring further. So that's how select by attributes works. Something else I want to show you while I'm here is that I do want to go ahead and show you how to symbolize other types of data. Basically, anytime we want to change the symbol, we can go ahead and just click on a data layer. This one in particular is a layer I downloaded called Park Need, and what this is that this is a multi-step evaluation model, and I'm not going to explain all the steps right now, but somebody has produced, and if I open the attribute table up real quick, what you'll see is that Park Need Final is a score. So every single polygon that you see over here has a score that's associated with it that ranks that particular piece of that identifiable area. It ranks it in terms of need for, or how much demand there is for new parks. And so this is a selection tool, or a selection model that's really, or an evaluation model. Sorry, I need to start using Steiner's model names more specifically, but an evaluation model that specifically shows where we should be going after new parks. Now the problem is, and I'm going to go ahead and close this out so we can see all of it, is that right now it doesn't have any data, right? Even if I go in and use, just click on the layer, it's actually not even popping up and showing me that final score attribute by going ahead and clicking on these attributes. What's going on here is that in the background, and I clicked on this to modify the symbol. And over here, if that doesn't pop up, you can come over to symbology. What's going on is that it is actually an issue where, let me jump back here, where right now the primary symbology is single symbol, when what I really want is to go ahead and represent the unique values of that Park Need Final. And you'll see that the values that are set up here are 3, 4, and 5, right? And so we could go ahead and change up the color ramp on this, right? So that we can actually very clearly tie those together, or we can actually come in and individually change the colors to whatever we'd want to go ahead and symbolize, and I got to hit, this is a change for ArcGIS Pro. You always have to hit the apply button. It used to just happen automatically. Anyway, but that allows us to go ahead and come in here and identify where the properties are, where the areas are within the city that are most likely to need new parks or additional park space acquired. And so you can start to see that red that I just kind of jumped in there. The red would be those areas that have been identified as having the highest need. Now that's just, there's many different types of, especially polygon layers that have some kind of a ranking score behind them. Later in the semester, you're actually going to be producing one of your own, and so we'll definitely be working our way in that direction. So that kind of takes care of kind of using select by attributes to pull data out of a layer into something we can look at more specifically. This is actually going ahead and ranking out the different values. So anytime we have numerical values, we can actually use that. A different approach, before I completely leave this, a different approach instead of using unique values is actually to use a set of graduated colors. And I believe there's only 3 classes in this, and so I would have to go ahead and get that to apply and drop in for us. And actually it's just because of the way that data layer is set up, it's not allowing me to split those. Oh, there it goes. It actually did apply it into 3 different. And so I could have done it that way. In this case, what this is that if you have a long list of numbers, say, people's age, based on neighborhood, you can actually come in and adjust that, and you can decide how you want to display that data. Natural breaks is very common, but if you're working with in a neighborhood, say demographic data where you have age, you might want to break it up into something that has 3 classes. You might want to break it up into 10 classes. Whatever best helps you understand and visualize the data for people you're sharing it with. Right. So far what we've covered is that we have covered the select by attributes tool. We have covered symbology for individual, we've covered symbology for single symbols. We've covered symbology for unique values and graduated values. I will tell you that only rarely do we as landscape architects get into some of these graduated symbols, but that's probably the other one that you would see most commonly with point data. And so let me go ahead and turn this off. The last thing I want to do in this video today is that I want to go ahead and create a selection layer that we're going to use in the next video. And what I mean by that is that I want to go ahead and select out just the borough of Manhattan. And so here's the borough name. And so there's 2 different ways. Again, we're going to use the select by attributes feature here. And we're going to create a new layer from selected features. And so how we go about doing that is, again, I clicked on it so that I could bring up these attributes. I now know that it's object ID, which is a unique number that is distinct for this polygon, is one way to get that. I could also look at borough name, and it's Manhattan. So either approach would work. And so again, if I go in here, what it's asking me to do to start with is, I don't know what, get that off my screen. I can go in here and I'm going to go into New York City borough boundary. That's the layer I want to pull data from. I'm going to create a new selection. In this case, remember, I could do object ID is equal to, and I could just type in the number 4 and hit apply, and you're going to see here in the background that popped up and captured all of Manhattan, right? And so instead of having all of these, I can now basically, it's like a cookie cutter, cut that out and have a new layer. Again, the other approach we talked about was borough name, and in borough name it might even be easier because I can just scroll down to the name Manhattan and hit OK. Once I've done that, just as a reminder, to go ahead and turn that into a layer, I'm going to go ahead and go down to selection, and I'm going to say make a layer from selected features. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn off that boundary, and you can see that now all of Manhattan has been cut out. Has created a new layer. And then the last thing I'm going to do, because we're going to be using this in another step, is that these selection layers are just temporary layers. They haven't been saved anywhere. And so to actually save them, what you want to go ahead and do is right click, go down to data, and I'm going to go ahead and go to export features. I already have it set up. New York City, I'm going to actually say Manhattan, and then get rid of the word selection at the end. Manhattan boundary is an accurate description of this. I do want to put it in my geodatabase file. Remember, that's a folder structure specific for storing spatial data layers, right? And, oh wait, I messed up. That's the name I want down here. Up here, I do need to go back and grab the correct one, New York City boundary selection. All right, we should be all set, ready to go. All right, it's going to take it a minute to go ahead and run through that. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, and then I'll circle back and finish up. All right, you'll see now that my New York City Manhattan boundary went ahead and auto loaded. If I go back into my catalog and refresh my geodatabase file, you'll actually see that it is now popped in here, New York City Manhattan boundary. Now the last thing I want to do here is that I don't need the boundary to actually look like this. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, go into symbology. I really don't need a color, an outline color. Let's go ahead and make it into red, and I'm going to go ahead and change the outline and apply it and see how that looks. What should pop up there, if I turn off what's underneath it, that might be a little intense just in terms of the size of the boundary. I'm going to go ahead and downsize it a bit. But now I got a boundary selection around Manhattan. I'm going to use that again in a future video. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and remove both the temporary layer and the original layer itself.